Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. From now until June 17th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing to win a Modern Horizons booster box. Also, there is a way to enter the drawing with no purchase necessary. See the description below for the full details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the final day of Modern Horizons previews. We're going to look at the last 59 cards that have yet to be revealed until now. Today, we're going to go kind of quickly, though. There's a lot of cards to look at. My main focus in this video is going to be draft and sealed, considering all the cards today are commons and uncommons. Now, some of them could see some Fringe Modern play, some will see Pauper play, many will probably see Commander play, but I'm only going to lightly touch on those topics today because most of these cards are just really solid limited cards. As always, the sources are in the description below, but there's only one card today that did not come from Wizards directly. Finally, just one reminder, if you're looking to pre-order singles, they are up on FlipsideGaming.com, and you can use that Heroes promo code, hopefully save yourself a little cash and support the channel too. Always appreciated, but let's get into it. Face of Divinity, kind of a fun little nod to Daybreak Coronet. Nothing crazy about this card though. Not a big fan of auras like this because they really want you to stack onto a creature. Unless you have some way to protect the creature, protect the auras, I'm not a big fan in draft or sealed. The idea here is you put this aura on, but you also want another aura on it too. Piling too many things on creatures can be very high risk. Most of the time, unless I have some kind of trick in my deck to get this back or something like that, and there are ways to do it, I'm probably going to skip it. First Sliver's chosen. Pretty sweet sliver, actually. So remember, in Limited, Boros is the sliver colors, so they're going to be where you're going to find most of the slivers when you draft or play sealed. And also, Orzhov is going to be where you find the changeling creatures for the most part. So this can go into either of those archetypes pretty easily. And beyond that, yeah, you know what? I might play this in my Commander Sliver deck for sure. Exalted seems pretty sweet. A regular cohort, good card for either maybe the Sliver Boros deck or the Orzhov Changeling deck. This makes sense in the Azorius Blink build too. Good economy here too for draft or sealed. Like forecasting cost, you're getting 4/4 power toughness on the battlefield. Nothing wrong with that. Knight of Old Benalia. It could be okay, especially if I have a lot of creatures already in play. Again, this will make sense with slivers, giving them a little bit of a burst because they will be going wide. Changelings as well, so it kind of fits into those categories. Also, it has a good enters the battlefield effect, which could be interesting in the Azorius Blink build, because Azorius is going to be focused on flicker effects. Even the Selesnya strategy cares about creatures entering the battlefield, so it could be good there too. There's a lot of different archetypes where this is going to make sense for you. And yeah, with Suspend, being able to maybe suspend this on turn 1 and just get this creature to come out with haste 5 turns later, that's going to be pretty good because you're also hopefully going to have another play that turn. Or if you play it later in the game for the hard casting cost, it could be good there too under the right circumstances. Lancer Sliver. Okay, when it comes to like Pauper Slivers or something, there are cheaper ways to give your Slivers first strike, so they probably won't be too concerned with this. In Limited though, again, Boros Slivers or Orzhov Changeling, you'll be pretty happy to play this one. Even on its own, I mean, a 2/2 for a striker for 3, not a bad limited card. Recruit the Worthy. Yeah, this is okay. It might not always make your cut. A 1/1 for 1 isn't too exciting. Buyback 3, though, is a little more interesting. The fact that it's an instant, you could use this as a combat trick is even more interesting. So there are times where this could be okay for you, especially if you're in Selesnya colors, where that is the color combination that cares the most about creatures entering the battlefield. Reprobation. This is actually pretty cool because the whole idea of Innistrad was the top-down design. This is a very top-down design card. This is also a good common level removal spell for you when it comes to white. Being able to take a large creature, make them 0/1, and also have them lose their abilities, that could be even more important in this set. Note that they keep their super type but lose their creature type. Could be very relevant against slivers or other tribal synergies. This will be a very good common pickup. Rock's Veteran, good limited card here. A 2/4 for 4 isn't super exciting, but Battle Cry is good. And when this attacks, you get to tap target creature an opponent controls. That could be very critical, especially if you have a go-wide deck with smaller creatures. Again, probably best in Orzhov Changelings or Boros Slivers. Settle Beyond Reality. Okay, this is a good card just generally. Exile target creature you don't control. That alone is just going to be good for 5 mana, sorcery speed, and limited. But the fact that you can also blink one of your creatures if you choose to, that's going to be especially good in the Azorius build or the Selesnya build. Shelter, here's the last reprint that's in the set that we haven't yet discussed. Originally from Odyssey, also an Eternal Masters. Great limited card. If you played with it before, you know what I'm talking about here. It's just got tons of versatility. It's good offensively. Maybe you're worried only about one color blockers across the battlefield. Or it's very good defensively if somebody's attacking in or trying to use spout removal, something along those lines. I've seen this played in a lot of Commander Feather decks recently too. Soul Strike Technique. Here's an aura I don't hate because even though the aura itself isn't too exciting, +1/+1 and Vigilance for 2, at least if the creature dies, you get to manifest, so you get something out of it. Now, manifest you could miss and not hit a creature card, but you still get a 2/2 off the top of your deck. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not always going to make your cut though. Stirring Address. Now, go wide decks are going to appreciate this more because that overload could be a game ender. But you know what? In limited, this is just going to be good. You're going to have a lot of creatures no matter what color combination you're in, even if you're not going down the Sliver or Changeling road. This will still come in handy. And on the fly, if you're falling behind, the combat trick for 2 could be decent as well. Trustworthy Scout. This one's kind of interesting because at least it's a 2/2 for 2. Even if you had no other copies of this in your deck, it is playable as a curve filler, and many times you will just need a 2/2 for 2, and there you go. Now, if you happen to have other copies, and draft especially if you can grab a few, then this does become better. Moving on to blue with Blizzard Strix. Okay, so blue and green, of course, are your snow colors, so anything with snow permanents they're going to be very interested in. This is an example of that. This card also has the opportunity to blink, so Azorius will be very interested in it as well. Notice that this can blink any permanent other than itself. That adds versatility. Blink it taps land you control to have mana for an instant next turn. Blink an opponent's creature to get aggressive, so on and so forth. But sometimes you just need evasion, so a 5 casting cost 3/2 flyer with flash, even if you don't care about the other tricks going on, there are worse 5 drops. Cunning Evasion. Okay, a lot of times I'm not a huge fan of enchantments that do nothing on their own, but this is a pretty good one, especially in certain builds. 2 casting costs, so it's not asking too much. Mostly, though, this will just be fantastic in Ninja Dimir builds. Whether it's a full-on draft ninja deck or I just have a lot of good ninjas in my sealed pool, this could be worth running. Now, it works great with ninjutsu, but there's other things this card can do too. Azorius is not really a blink card, but it can act kind of like one some of the time. And remember, if you're in the Simic colors, which even though they focus on snow, green does care a little bit about creatures entering the battlefield, so replaying creatures could be beneficial sometimes there too. Ikite, a 1/2 flyer for 2, that can be okay, but if it's a 3/2 some of the time, especially early in the game, that could be even better. And it's the Izzet colors that care about this whole drawing more than one card per turn mechanic. So if you're in the Izzet deck, then yeah, there could be more payoffs for card draw. So keep an eye out too. Anything that cantrips could help you there. Cycling does the trick too. Feels like it could be a fun archetype. Iceberg Cancrix. Okay, this is a snow permanent that interacts with other snow permanents, so this will be best in Simic. Interesting blocker though in general. Even if you're not trying to mill out your opponent, this does let you slow down the game a little bit. If I'm playing even something like the Izzet colors that are trying to be a little more methodical, or Azorius perhaps, this could fit into those decks too, just to gum up the ground if nothing else. One Aerophage. Okay, this is a good limited card. Like a 1/2 for 4 with flying isn't amazing, obviously, but it is going to get bigger. Every time you draw a card, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So over time, if your opponent doesn't have an answer, they could be in trouble. Now, this gets especially good in the Izzet colors because you're going to be drawing more cards. Obviously, they care about drawing more than one card per turn, so there's going to be ways to enable that there. Regardless, though, look for cantrips and cycling opportunities for this. Phantasmal Form, pretty cool actually. This one does cantrip, so I would be thinking about Izzet colors. But even aside from that, this does something blue doesn't always do. This could take smaller creatures you control and make them a little bit bigger for a turn. A lot of times blue will pump defense, but not always pump offense. But what I really like about this card is the versatility. I can use this as a combat trick. My opponent attacks in with maybe a 2/2 flyer. 2 of my creatures that are smaller now could jump in the air possibly. Or even larger creatures could jump in the air but lose their power toughness to take care of that situation for the turn. Or I could use it more offensively on my turn. A couple of my smaller creatures or creatures that don't have evasion could jump up and attack in as 3/3s. 6 damage off attacking creatures that you might not have been able to get before for 3 mana. I can also play this on my opponent's creatures if they do have something bigger, for example, that I want to shrink down, at least for the turn, then yeah, this card can do that too. Reign of Revelation. Alright, these are always going to be good. Now, it costs 4, so it's going to have a hard time crossing over into, say, Modern or Legacy or anything like that. But in Limited, drawing 3 cards, discarding a card for 4 mana instant speed, yeah, you'll do that and you're going to be happy with it. You're going to be especially happy, again, if you're in the Izzet colors and you care about drawing more than 1 card per turn. The discard could benefit Izzet as well as Dimir and Golgari at times. Smoke Shroud. Now, here's an aura that I enjoy if I'm playing ninjas, because if I have ninjas, I can get this back out of the graveyard, and that's important. Note that it moves right onto the ninja from the graveyard, which is pretty sweet. If I didn't have that opportunity, I might not be as high on this card, but honestly, giving something flying, especially for just 2 mana, and it also gets +1/+1, that can still be good in Limited, even though it's high risk, high reward. So definitely in my deck if I'm playing with ninjas. If I'm not playing with ninjas for some reason, maybe I'm just not in the Dimir colors or whatever, I might still consider playing this. Like, you'll have some big creatures in Simic for sure, and even though there's a little bit of a risk, you open yourself up to a 2-for-1 there, the payoff could be really good. If you can, just play it when your opponent's tapped out or they have no cards in their hand. Wind Color Aven. Okay, this has cycling, so remember, that's another way to enable that Izzet strategy of drawing more than 1 card per turn. Also, this can grant flying to another creature when you do cycle it, at least until end of turn. So if you're in Simic colors, you might have some big ground creatures that just can't get by. This could help you there. And at the end of the day, it can still be a 4/3 flyer for 6 if you get to that point in the game. I love cycling. It's a powerful effect. If I get stuck on mana and I don't think I'm getting to 6 fast enough, cycle it away. You even get a little bit of a benefit here when you do so. Might not always be relevant, but it's there. And then hopefully you hit the land you need. Winter's Rest. This is a good blue removal spell as long as you have another snow permanent. So it is a snow permanent on its own, which is nice for Simic, of course. You don't need to be in Simic or have snow permanents to play this card. It will still tap a creature. It just won't stay tapped without another snow permanent. If you're not in Simic or at least have other snow permanents consistently, I don't know if it's really worth a spot in your deck. Snow basic lands, remember you can use the ones that you draft or the ones that are in your sealed booster packs, but you can't just go to the land station and pick them up, so that can get kind of tricky sometimes. Ezra Smoke Shaper as we move on to black, and you know what, this is a ninja for Dimir Ninja decks, but it doesn't have to just be played there. It's also a pretty solid creature, a 3/3 for 4, it's got the ninjutsu for a black and 1, and it even has an ability when it enters the battlefield. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. That could include this creature too if it came down to it. Maybe this is your only creature left after your ninjutsu. I know I'm also talking about Limited today, but I gotta say it. Those Yuriko Commander decks are getting a lot of tools. First Sphere Gargantua. Okay, this is an interesting one because it has the Unearth for a black and 2. If you can get this into your graveyard, there's tons of value here. If you can, it's not the worst thing in the world either. Like a 6 casting costs 5/4, which is going to give you a card draw, you lose a life. Nothing wrong with that. And then you also have the insurance later. If it dies, you could unearth it and do it again for a lot cheaper. But of course, the creature will only stick around for 1 attack when you unearth. But still, this is just a good card. Best in Golgari because they care about what's in the graveyard and they have ways to get cards into the graveyard too. Gluttonous Slug. I like this card. 0/3 for 2. Early on, it's a nice little blocker, especially against those aggressive builds. It has Menace and Evolve, so later on, as you play through the game, you cast your creatures, it slowly gets bigger. There's a lot of defense here too, because if it gets 1 counter, now it's a 1/4, 2 counters, a 2/5. It's hard to get by, which is kind of nice. And the Menace also makes it a little more offensive too, which is pretty good. Generally, this might be best in like a Rakdos deck where you know you're going to have a lot of creatures of different sizes. You're going to be playing like Goblin Aristocrats there, but it's going to fit pretty nicely in most builds of Sealed or Draft. Graveshifter. So this is basically Gravedigger, but instead of a zombie, it's a changeling. Still a zombie, it's just everything else too. If you've ever played with Gravedigger in Limited, you know how good the card is. 2/2 for 4 doesn't sound super exciting, but taking a creature card back from your graveyard to hand can be very, very good. It lets you just get a little looser with blocks, especially early on in the game, knowing you're going to be able to get the creature back. You also might know how good it was in the past when you got 2 Gravediggers in Limited. You can juggle them, which could be especially good in the Rakdos Goblin Aristocrat strategy. And this does count as a goblin too. Golgari also has ways to populate the graveyard, which could give you more options when it comes to what you're taking out of there. Also, this is a changeling, which is going to play well with Orzhov. That is a theme over there. Overall, this will be a very versatile card in the set. Mob. This is going to be a fantastic limited removal spell for you. I don't care what colors you're playing. This is even splashable. I mean, 1 black and 4, not bad. I would probably pick this up pretty early in a draft pack, even as a common. It also has Convoke. I mean, it already had me, but that's a nice little add-on. Putrid Goblin. little bit reminiscent of Safehold Elite from back in the day. What's nice about a card like this is even if you don't care about goblins and you don't care about zombies, a 2/2 for 2 is an awesome curve filler, and it has Persist to boot. Now, if you're playing Rakdos Goblins, then yeah, especially one that you can sacrifice a couple times is going to be very appealing, but ultimately, I'm probably going to play this no matter what I'm doing in black. Rank Officer. Here's a zombie for you. It looks fragile, 3/1 for 4, but there's a lot happening here. When this enters the battlefield, though, you have the option to discard a card. If you choose to, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token, which does add to your board presence. Maybe you have an extra land in your hand that's not doing anything wonderful, you can turn it into a small creature. Beyond that, it's just nice to have a discard outlet sometimes. Golgari and Rakdos both could take advantage of that at times. The activated ability works well in those colors too, since Golgari will populate the graveyard, and Rakdos will as well when you sacrifice creatures. Ransack the Lab. This is a color-shifted version of Strategic Planning, which is kind of cool. Black version of that card, and it kind of makes sense in this color. It doesn't feel out of place. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck for 2 mana. Put one of them in your hand, the rest in your graveyard. So this is a great way to populate the graveyard for Golgari especially, but also just a great way to dig and see more cards. Even if I'm not in Golgari colors, I'm probably playing one of these and being happy with it. Return from Extinction. This fits into like every archetype for black. Dimir cares about ninjas, so it's going to be good there. Rakdos cares about goblins, so it'll be good there. Orzhov cares about changelings, so it'll be good there. Golgari puts stuff in the graveyard, so this is going to be good there. Yeah, no matter what color combination you're playing with, this is going to be strong for you. Obviously, it gets a little better if you can match up creature types, but again, just taking something back from your graveyard, getting a little bit looser with your blocks early on, it could help out a lot. Sadistic Obsession, yikes, I don't like this one. Forecasting cost is a lot. I love putting -1/-1 counters on things, don't get me wrong. However, this is a little painful. A black and tap to activate that ability, and 4 to get it started on a creature. If that creature gets blown up, where are you at that point? You just wasted 4 mana on this and got 2 for 1s? Yikes, yeah, I think I'm going to skip this one if I can afford to. I might side it in if I'm really desperate, maybe my opponent has a lot of small creatures or something like that, but I'm going to try to avoid it. Shatter Assumptions. Okay, for limited sideboard cards, see what your opponent's playing. If they have a lot of colorless non-land cards or a lot of multicolor cards, then bring it in. This is one of the cards, though, I'm going to talk Modern about for a second. There's a million ways to host Tron right now. I don't think this is necessarily as good as the ones that already exist, but I do find it's interesting that here's another way to host Tron in this set, too. So it does feel like Wizards is trying to slow that deck down a little bit. Aside from that, though, Commander is another place you might be interested in playing this, maybe more so for the multicolor there. Silumgar Scavenger. This is actually kind of sweet. A 2/3 flyer for 5 doesn't sound like an amazing card, but whenever another creature you control dies, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and it has Exploit. So you can play it, sacrifice a creature, and now it's coming in as a 3/4 flyer for 5. That doesn't sound too bad, especially if it has the potential to grow as the game goes on. This might be best in the Rakdos Goblin Aristocrat strategy, but honestly, I could see myself playing this whenever I need a creature with evasion that has potential for growth in the late game. Now, with that being said, sometimes you'll just have better things in different builds because 5 is pretty heavy on the casting cost side. You could have some real bombs once we start talking about 5/6 drops. Ward Eye Witch. Okay, those of you who watch these videos know 2 things about me. I love 2/2s for 2, and I hate 3/2s for 3. They trade down for 2/2s for 2. However, give me a good ability, and I'm going to let you get by, and this is one of those cases. Sure, I don't love the stats, but whenever this or another creature dies, I get to scry 1. It's a goblin, too. Perfect for the Rakdos Goblin Aristocrat strategy. And even if I'm not in that strategy, this is going to be good. Things you control are going to die. Being able to scry is always positive. Bogardan Dragonheart. Okay, let's move into red, but stick with those Goblin Aristocrats for just a moment. Now, this is not a goblin, but it does say sacrifice another creature until end of turn. This will become a 4/4 flyer with haste. Nothing wrong with that, right? 3 mana 2/2. I'm not crazy about that. But again, if I know I'm going to have things to sacrifice and I have other payouts like the card we just saw a second ago, yeah, this will certainly make my deck. Any kind of an aggressive build will appreciate something like this. Cleaving Sliver, very similar to the old Bone Splitter Sliver, but this time it's just slivers you control as opposed to all slivers, so that's kind of nice. Boros Slivers will love this card for sure. Remember, it is a 4/2 for 4, so if you're in the market for something like that, maybe you just play it in the absence of other slivers. Although I'm typically not very fond of those stats either, because now you have a 4-drop that trades with a 2-drop. Igneous Elemental. Okay, so this one costs 6 for a 4/3. I'm not happy, But let's keep reading. This spell costs 2 less to cast if there is a land in your graveyard. Okay, I'm a lot happier now. Also, when it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target creature. That's fine too. So Gruul colors care about lands going to the graveyard. So this will be perfect in a Gruul deck. The other color combination where this will be more likely is Golgari because there's, again, ways to populate the graveyard. Also, though, remember, there are flicker effects that you might encounter in Boros or Izzet too. So if you have synergies with this in your pool, great. If not, maybe you skip it. Quakefoot Cyclops. Yeah, you know what? This is a fine limited creature. 4/4 for 5. Enters the battlefield. Up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn. That's phenomenal. That could sometimes even put away a game. Maybe best in the Boros Sliver deck because you want to be hyper aggressive with those slivers and keep attacking. And there are also some ways to blink in white, so you might be able to get that ability to occur more than one time. That is true with blue too. This also cycles, so if you get stuck on mana, wonderful. Or maybe you're not even stuck on mana. Maybe you just need to create a situation where one of your opponent's creatures can't block that turn. And if that can put you over the top, then for 2 mana, wonderful. Spinehorn Minotaur. Okay, 2/3 for 3. Those are fine stats. Like, I like those better than 3 2s for 3. I don't love them, but they're okay. This can get double strike, though, if you draw more than 1 card per turn. Again, maybe best in the Izzet colors, but look out for cantrips, look out for cycling opportunities. They can all turn on that ability. Vengeful Devil, best in the Rakdos Goblin deck, of course, here, because it does have Morbid. You want to maybe sacrifice some creatures from time to time, so this is another thing that you can do when something dies. Other than that, though, it's not super exciting because the ability is pretty good, 1 to any target, but it does take something to turn it on. It has haste, but a lot of times that's not going to come into play considering it's a 2-drop. 1/1 is going to feel really fragile, I think, in this environment. If I'm not in that Goblin deck, I probably skip this. Viyoshino Sand Sprinter. This is actually kind of interesting, like a 4/1 for 3, trample haste, but at the end step, if it's still alive, it goes back to your hand. If this thing's still alive at your end step, your opponent's in trouble. Like, they need to block this with something. Most of the time they'll be able to, but the trample damage will usually do something. And then you can also cycle this thing away, so that's a nice option to have too. That opens it up to be interesting to a few different archetypes. The cycling for Izzet, for example. The Goblin deck might appreciate the fact that this is something that will most likely come in and die, so Rakdos might be looking at this card too. Boros is also a very aggressive build with the slivers. I don't think this always makes your cut because of the fragility, but I think most of the time you'll be pleasantly surprised at how this card does perform in the right decks. Volatile Claws. Oh wow, okay, so Boros Sliver deck, anybody? Any creature you have that's not a sliver, well, they're going to be a sliver when you attack that turn, right? Or it's an instant, you could use this as a defensive combat trick too, but that's not what you want to do. You want to go wide with slivers and just totally attack in, right? Even if you're not talking slivers, again, we could be talking a lot of goblins and Rakdos or whatever, you're still going to be happy to just give all your stuff +2/+0, even if the whole creature type thing isn't very relevant. But remember, there are lords and various cards that will make that line important too. Bellowing Elk as we move on to green. 4/2 for 4. Yikes, not a big fan of that, but as long as you had another creature enter the battlefield under your control this turn, it gets trample and indestructible. Okay, best in the Selesnya build, they're going to care the most about creatures entering the battlefield, and they're going to be able to do it most consistently. White has the blink elements, green's going to bring a lot of the creatures. So yeah, if I'm playing that type of builds, I'll play this card. If I'm lighter on creatures or blink effects, then I'll skip this. Conifer Worm. This is a snow creature, perfect for Simic because it cares about your other snow permanents. 4/4 trample for 5 isn't the worst thing in the world in a vacuum either. You kind of want to do better than that, probably in this set, but if you need it and you're not in the snow strategy, it might still be playable. In Simic Snow, though, this could be really good. Excavating Anerid. I kind of like this card. A 5 casting cost 4/4 doesn't sound that great. A 5 casting cost 5/5 with Vigilance if you hit Threshold doesn't sound that great either. But when it enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice a land. If you do, draw a card. You don't have to, but you can. And being able to see more cards is always going to be good. If I have the 5 mana to cast this 9 times out of 10, even if I only have 5, I'm probably going to just go ahead and sack that land. This gets especially good in Gruul because they care about lands in the graveyard. And also, Golgari cares about basically anything in the graveyard to some degree. So it could be decent there too. Obviously, it makes sense with the Threshold as well. Ultimately, this might be better in some decks than others, but I do think it's pretty good because of the card draw, if nothing else. Murasa Behemoth. This is pretty good. 6 casting costs 5/5 with Trample, but if there's a land in your graveyard, it gets +3/+3. That is an 8/8 trample creature? That is not bad for Drafter Sealed. So, here's my thought. Yes, Gruul would love this because they're going to be throwing lands in the graveyard. But again, don't forget about cycling lands. If there's any way to get a land in the graveyard, this is worth your time. If you don't think that's going to happen, a 5/5 trample for 6 might not make your cut. You probably have better things in this set, but it's not the worst thing in the world either. Rime Tender. Here we go again. It's a 2/2 for 2. You already had me right there. You might not be playing with any snow permanents, and you know what? This could still be a curve filler for you. If you're in Simic or you're just playing with some snow permanents, even better. Let's keep the train rolling with another 2/2 for 2 with upside. I love it. All day long I'll play these. This one is Settled Rime Stag, and notice it is a snow creature for Simic. Now, this will get +2/+2 as long as you have another creature enter the battlefield for you this turn. Occasionally a 4/4 for 2. A lot of the time a 2/2 for 2. Yeah, that's fantastic. Other than Simic, this will be good in Selesnya. Green will put creatures in play, white will bring the blink, so on and so forth. But I'll still play this and be real happy with it no matter what. Treefolk Umbra. I love Umbras because they actually give the creature some resilience. If the creature would be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura. So it's harder to get 2 for 1 if you play this on your creature. Now this particular one is just fine, it's nothing crazy. Obviously you'd like to play this on a high toughness creature, preferably one with evasion. Now remember, outside of Limited, those commander decks that care about toughness have always been a popular thing, been more popular recently because of Arcades, so this could find a home there too. Treetop Ambusher. If you've never played with Dash, you don't know what you're missing. It's actually a really good mechanic. 2/1 for 2, those are fine stats for an aggressive creature, but Dash is where you want to be. You play this for the Dash cost, it kind of sneaks into play. You attack with it, goes back into your hands, so if your opponent only has like sorcery removal, they don't really have a good answer for this. And if you pile this on with some other creatures that are just being super aggressive, it can be really good. Also, when this attacks target creature you control gets +1/+1, so it can target itself or another creature. Remember that, that's actually pretty sweet. So yeah, this is a good common. And you know what? I don't even care what colors I'm in. If I'm in an aggressive build of any kind and I'm playing green, I'm going to be happy to see this card. Now, granted, there are some more methodical decks where I might switch this out for something that's more controlling and defensive, but a lot of builds are just going to be happy to have this. Trumpeting Herd. I love Rebound. A 3/3 for 4, that kind of feels like on par for Limited generally. And then you get to rebound it next turn, so you're actually going to get 6/6 power and toughness on the battlefield for 4 over the course of 2 turns. That's nice economy, because remember, that second turn, your mana's still open to do something else too. This is great for pushing your board state. Again, maybe it makes sense with Selesnya because you're going to care about creatures entering the battlefield there. Spacing that out between 2 turns is kind of cool, but again, even if I'm not doing that, this is just still a solid card. Twin Silk Spider. So for 3, I'm getting 2/4 power toughness on the battlefield here with reach. Yeah, that's actually cheaper than a Giant Spider, and Giant Spider is usually a card you're very happy to play in Drafter Sealed. So yeah, great economy here, and remember, 2 creatures are entering the battlefield here, so that could work well with Selesnya strategies. I'm a sucker for cards like this. Winding Way. So it's a 2 casting cost sorcery, choose creature or land, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. And depending on what you chose, you could actually get up to 4 cards off this if you're super lucky, right? So that's not going to happen, obviously, all that often. But even if I got 2 cards off this thing, it replaced itself and got me a card, plus it's populating my graveyard, yeah, sign me up. So great for Gruul because you're going to want lands in the graveyard, so pick creatures. Great for Golgari because you might actually want the creatures in the graveyard, so just choose the other option there. Or just generally, you know what, early in the game, I want to hit my lands, maybe I'm getting a little greedy on colors. Play this, you see more of your deck. Or later in the game, you don't want to hit lands anymore because you just need to get heat. Say creatures, hopefully you can hit something big. This is really solid. Amorphous Axe, cool equipment here. I mean, in Limited, like a 3 equip, 2 casting cost, +3/+0 isn't bad. But then it also basically turns the creature into a changeling. So it's going to play well in like Boros Slivers, or Zop Changelings, or if you just have those random lords that exist in the set, you could have some added value there. Nice piece of equipment for Limited. Birthing Boughs. This type of thing's good to have in Limited generally because you don't want to be in a board stall where you're just kind of sitting there staring at your opponent. Later in the game, even though you can only activate this once per turn cycle because it does tap, you do create a 2/2 colorless shapeshifter. So just creating a 2/2 would be nice to kind of race the board state a little bit. Those turns where you draw land, you can still do something, but the fact that it's a changeling makes it even better for all the reasons I just mentioned a few moments ago. Fountain of Ichor. Good mana rock here. 3 casting cost, taps for any color, will fix colors, ramp you out a little bit, nothing wrong with that. And you can pay 3 to turn it into a 3/3 dinosaur artifact creature until end of turn. So when you don't need the mana rock and you just want to get aggressive, you do have a way to do that. Works defensively too. Great card for a lot of limited builds. I like that they worked a dinosaur in here too, even if it is a dinosaur artifact creature. And Commander, you're always looking for new and interesting mana rocks, right? Cave of Temptation, good common to try to filter your lands if you're trying to get a little more greedy. Taps are colorless, but you can pay 1, tap, and it will give you 1 of any color. Also, once you're at the point where you just don't need it anymore, pay 4, tap, sacrifice it, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. That's nice. I like things that do something when they outlive their usefulness. Now, you can only do that anytime you can cast a sorcery, so you can't just do it on the fly, but still nice to have. Alright, with that being said, we did it. We got through Modern Horizons. We've talked about every single card in the set. If you missed any of the episodes, there is a playlist on the channel. Tomorrow, we're going to come back with our Market Watch, which we do every Saturday. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.